For 12 years, Emily Harper believed she understood the man she married. Every Friday evening, just before sunset, her husband Daniel would kiss her on the forehead, grab the same worn leather overnight bag, and tell her he was heading out for another overnight logistics contract outside the city. It became part of their marriage routine. Their children stopped questioning it years ago. Their neighbors admired Daniel for how hard he worked. Even Emily defended him whenever family members complained that he was always absent during birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. She told herself sacrifice was part of marriage. She told herself love meant trust. But one rainy afternoon in October, everything Emily believed about her husband collapsed in less than 30 seconds. A little girl opened a front door, looked directly into Emily's eyes, smiled innocently, and said the one word that would destroy two families forever. Dad? Before we go deeper into this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. At first, Emily thought she had heard the child incorrectly. She stood frozen on the porch while cold rain soaked through her coat sleeves. The little girl could not have been older than 8 years old. She had curly brown hair, freckles across her cheeks, and the exact same dimples as Daniel. For a brief second, Emily convinced herself it was some strange misunderstanding. Maybe the child had confused Daniel for someone else. Maybe she was talking about another man inside the house. But then Emily heard footsteps approaching from deeper inside the home, followed by a woman's voice calling out casually from another room. "Maya, who's at the door?" The little girl smiled brightly and turned around toward the hallway. Then she shouted words Emily would never forget for the rest of her life. "Dad's here." Emily later admitted that the sound of that child's voice haunted her more than discovering the affair itself. Because in that single moment, she realized this was not some reckless relationship hidden inside hotel rooms or late-night text messages. This was something far more devastating. This was a complete second life. Neighbors later described the house as quiet and ordinary. It sat on a peaceful suburban street nearly 40 minutes away from the neighborhood where Emily and Daniel had raised their own children together. White fence. Blue shutters. Basketball hoop in the driveway. Nothing about the home looked unusual. Yet inside that house existed birthdays Emily never attended, Christmas mornings she never saw, school graduations she never knew happened, and family photographs where another woman stood beside her husband smiling exactly the way Emily once smiled in her own wedding photos. For 12 years, Daniel Harper had somehow managed to split his life into two separate realities. And somehow, neither family knew the full truth about the man they trusted completely. The disturbing part was how ordinary Daniel seemed to everyone around him. He was not flashy or charming in the way people imagine when they hear stories like this. He worked quietly. Paid bills on time. Mowed the lawn every Saturday morning. He coached Little League Baseball when their son Tyler was younger. He sat beside Emily every Sunday morning in church wearing the same gray jacket and polite smile. Friends described him as dependable. Reliable. Predictable. That was what made the betrayal so difficult to understand later. There were no dramatic warning signs in the beginning. No mysterious lipstick stains. No sudden disappearances lasting days. Daniel built his deception slowly, carefully, over more than a decade until his lies blended naturally into everyday life. Emily often replayed their marriage inside her mind, searching for the exact moment everything began. She met Daniel when she was 24 years old working as a receptionist inside a medical office in Columbus, Ohio. Daniel worked nearby as a warehouse supervisor and used to stop by every Tuesday morning delivering inventory paperwork. He was quiet at first. Reserved. The type of man who listened more than he talked. Emily liked that about him because after years of dating arrogant men who loved hearing themselves speak, Daniel felt safe. Stable. Honest. Within 2 years they were married. 5 years later they had 2 children and moved into a modest suburban home where Emily believed they would eventually grow old together. Looking back now, Emily says the scariest part about betrayal is realizing your happiest memories existed alongside lies you could not see. For years, Daniel's overnight work trips never seemed suspicious because their family genuinely needed the money. During the early years of marriage, Emily stayed home raising the children while Daniel worked long shifts trying to keep up with bills, medical expenses, and mortgage payments. When Daniel explained that a transportation company offered him extra overnight logistics contracts every weekend, Emily actually encouraged him to accept the work. The extra income helped pay for their daughter Chloe's braces and Tyler's college savings account. Daniel even returned home exhausted every Saturday morning carrying coffee and breakfast for the family. Emily saw those gestures as proof of love. She had no idea he was coming from another home where another family believed the exact same lies. The first strange moment happened almost 7 years before Emily discovered the truth, though she ignored it completely at the time. Daniel accidentally left his phone inside the kitchen while taking a shower upstairs. The phone buzzed repeatedly against the countertop while Emily prepared dinner. After the fourth missed call, she glanced down and noticed the name Lena appear on the screen followed by a small red heart emoji. Emily remembers feeling an uncomfortable knot in her stomach, but Daniel walked downstairs before she could question it. When she casually asked who Lena was, Daniel laughed immediately and said she was an older dispatcher from work who constantly called employees after hours. Emily wanted to believe him, so she did. Years later she would realize how many lies survive simply because people want peace more than truth. The final unraveling began 3 weeks before Emily arrived at the second house. Daniel's behavior changed subtly at first. He became distracted during conversations. He started sleeping closer to the edge of the bed. Some nights Emily would wake up around 2 in the morning and notice Daniel sitting alone downstairs staring silently at his phone inside the dark kitchen. Whenever she asked what was wrong, he blamed stress from work. Then came the missed anniversary dinner. Daniel claimed his truck broke down outside Cincinnati and promised to make it up to her the following weekend. Emily cried quietly that night after the children went home, but she still defended him when her sister called his behavior suspicious. "He's just tired," Emily insisted. "He works harder than anyone I know." At the time, she still believed exhaustion explained everything. She still believed loyalty could protect a marriage from secrets. To everyone around them, Marcus and Denise Carter looked like the kind of couple people admired quietly from a distance. They had been married for almost 20 years, lived in a peaceful suburb outside Columbus, and raised 2 children who were already beginning lives of their own. Marcus coached baseball when their son Tyler was younger. Denise volunteered at church every Sunday morning. Their neighbors saw them hosting backyard cookouts every summer, smiling together in Christmas cards, standing side by side at graduations and anniversaries. Nothing about their marriage looked unusual. If anything, people described them as dependable, stable. The kind of couple younger families hoped to become one day. That was what made the truth so difficult to process later. Because while Denise spent years believing she understood the man sleeping beside her every night, another woman less than 40 minutes away believed she understood him too. 2 homes. 2 routines. 2 families living completely separate lives connected by one man who somehow managed to keep them from colliding for more than a decade. The second woman's name was Rachel Bennett. She was 38 years old, worked part-time at a dental office, and had spent 12 years believing Marcus was a divorced father rebuilding his life after a painful marriage ended years earlier. According to Rachel, Marcus rarely spoke badly about Denise. In fact, he barely mentioned her at all. He simply claimed his previous marriage collapsed slowly over time and that communication with his ex-wife remained limited because of the children. Rachel later admitted that looking back, many things about Marcus never fully made sense. He could never stay overnight for more than 2 consecutive evenings. Holidays always required complicated explanations. Thanksgiving schedules changed constantly. Christmas mornings were restricted to certain hours. Rachel noticed the inconsistencies, but Marcus always had an answer prepared. Sick relatives. Emergency work shifts. Family obligations involving his children. The explanation sounded reasonable enough at the time because Marcus delivered every lie calmly, confidently, and without hesitation. That confidence became the foundation of his double life. What shocked Denise most was realizing how organized Marcus had been. This was not reckless cheating driven by impulsive decisions. It was a carefully maintained routine that required planning nearly every single day for 12 years. He kept separate bank accounts under a business name Denise barely recognized. He carried 2 phones but disguised one as a work device connected to his transportation contracts. He memorized birthdays, school schedules, anniversaries, and holiday traditions for 2 completely different households. Investigators later estimated Marcus spent nearly 3 nights every week at Rachel's home while Denise believed he was handling overnight delivery contracts outside the city. Somehow, he remembered every detail. He attended parent-teacher meetings for children Denise never knew existed while still showing up for Tyler's baseball games and Chloe's piano recitals. He managed 2 emotional realities simultaneously without either family discovering the full truth. That level of deception disturbed everyone who eventually learned the story because it forced people to question how well they truly knew the people closest to them. As Denise quietly began examining the past more carefully, moments she once dismissed suddenly carried completely different meaning. She remembered nights Marcus arrived home exhausted but oddly distracted, staring at messages he quickly deleted whenever she entered the room. She remembered unexplained cash withdrawals and weekends where his work trips lasted slightly longer than expected. There were also emotional absences that made more sense now. Certain birthdays where Marcus seemed mentally distant. Family vacations interrupted by mysterious phone calls. Wedding anniversaries shortened because of urgent overnight assignments. Denise had ignored those moments because trusting Marcus felt easier than questioning him constantly. After nearly 2 decades of marriage, suspicion felt almost disrespectful. She believed loyalty meant refusing to imagine the worst about someone you loved. But now every memory felt contaminated. Every ordinary moment carried hidden meaning she failed to recognize at the time. The hardest part was realizing Marcus had likely kissed her goodbye before driving directly to another home where another family waited for him to arrive. The deeper Denise looked into Marcus's second life, the more unsettling the situation became. Rachel was not simply a hidden girlfriend living quietly on the side. She genuinely believed she and Marcus were building a future together. They shared a daughter named Maya and another younger child named Ethan. There were framed family portraits hanging inside Rachel's living room. Vacation photos from Florida trips Marcus supposedly spent attending work conferences. Handwritten birthday cards signed "Love Always, Marcus." School artwork where Maya proudly wrote essays about her father teaching her how to ride a bicycle. Marcus had woven himself fully into another family structure so naturally that even Rachel's parents considered him part of the family. He attended cookouts, graduations, and birthday dinners under an entirely different version of his identity. Some weekends, after leaving Denise's house Friday evening, Marcus would arrive at Rachel's home carrying groceries, toys, and movie rentals as if transitioning seamlessly between 2 separate worlds. What made the entire story even more painful was discovering how many people unknowingly protected Marcus's lies without realizing it. Coworkers covered shifts and signed overtime paperwork because Marcus asked them for favors. Relatives stopped questioning his schedule years earlier because his explanations sounded believable enough. Even Tyler and Chloe grew accustomed to their father missing occasional weekends because they genuinely believed he was sacrificing his time to provide for the family financially. Nobody questioned a hard-working husband trying to support his household. Nobody imagined those same overnight work trips involved bedtime stories, birthday parties, and family dinners happening inside another home across town. Denise later admitted that understanding the scale of Marcus's deception hurt more than the affair itself. Affairs happen every day. But maintaining a second family for 12 years required repeated choices made thousands of times without guilt stopping him even once. Then Denise uncovered something even worse. Marcus had not only hidden another family from her. He had hidden Denise from them too. Rachel and the children believed Denise was little more than a distant former marriage connected through shared custody complications. Maya had no idea the woman standing outside her front door that rainy afternoon was legally married to her father. In Maya's mind, Denise was simply another adult connected vaguely to Marcus's complicated past. That realization devastated Denise in ways she struggled to describe later because it meant Marcus had rewritten reality for everyone involved. He controlled every narrative carefully enough that two separate families accepted completely different versions of the same man for more than a decade. And as Denise sat alone inside her kitchen that night replaying every conversation from the past 12 years, one terrifying question refused to leave her mind. If Marcus could lie this convincingly for so long, then who was he really when nobody was watching? Long before Denise Carter discovered the second family, she believed her marriage represented survival. She met Marcus during the winter of 1998 while working double shifts at a small grocery store outside Dayton, Ohio. Denise was 22 years old, exhausted from helping support her younger sister after their father passed away unexpectedly. Marcus was 25, working warehouse jobs during the day and unloading delivery trucks at night just to stay ahead of overdue rent payments. Neither of them came from money. Their first apartment had stained carpets, unreliable heating, and a kitchen sink that leaked constantly during heavy rainstorms. Some nights they ate canned soup because groceries had to stretch until payday. But Denise often said those difficult years made her trust Marcus more deeply because he never complained. He simply worked harder. When friends spent weekends drinking or traveling, Marcus spent his Saturdays repairing old cars for extra cash while Denise balanced bills at the kitchen table trying to keep their utilities from getting disconnected. They built their marriage through years of financial pressure, sleepless nights, and small sacrifices that slowly shaped their identity as a family. By the time Tyler was born, Marcus had secured a steady position with a regional transportation company handling warehouse scheduling and overnight freight coordination. The hours were brutal, but the money was better than anything they had known before. Denise eventually left her retail job and focused on raising the children while Marcus handled most of the financial responsibilities. Their daughter Chloe arrived 4 years later, and despite the stress that came with raising 2 children on a modest income, Denise genuinely believed they had created a stable life together. Their routine became deeply familiar over the years. Sunday mornings began with church services followed by family breakfasts at the same diner outside town. Marcus sat quietly in the front pew every week beside Denise while Tyler played games on his phone and Chloe doodled absent-mindedly in church bulletins. Neighbors trusted Marcus enough to ask him for help fixing fences or moving furniture. Teachers described him as involved and dependable. Denise admired how easily Marcus slipped into the role of fatherhood. He attended school plays, coached youth baseball during Tyler's middle school years, and spent evenings helping Chloe practice speeches for debate tournaments. To everyone watching from the outside, the Carter family looked ordinary in the best possible way. As years passed, Marcus's overnight logistics contracts became a permanent part of family life. Nearly every Friday evening, he packed the same leather duffel bag and explained that transportation routes outside Columbus required overnight supervision through the weekend. Denise never questioned it because the additional income genuinely improved their lives. The overtime pay helped cover Tyler's first semester at Ohio State University and eventually assisted Chloe after she moved into a college dormitory 3 hours away. Whenever Denise thanked Marcus for sacrificing so much time with the family, he would smile tiredly and say he was only doing what husbands were supposed to do. Those words stayed with Denise for years because they reinforced the image she carried of Marcus inside her mind. A hard-working provider. A dependable husband. A man willing to exhaust himself for the people he loved. Looking back later, Denise admitted she confused consistency with honesty. Marcus repeated the same routines for so many years that she stopped examining them closely. His overnight absences no longer felt unusual because they had become part of the structure holding their family together. There were moments Denise remembered later with painful clarity once the truth finally surfaced. Marcus disliked taking photographs unless Denise insisted repeatedly. During birthdays or holidays, he often stepped away during group pictures claiming he needed to answer work calls. Denise also noticed he guarded one particular cell phone more carefully than the other devices he carried for work. Whenever messages appeared late at night, Marcus angled the screen away instinctively before responding. Denise questioned him occasionally, but Marcus always sounded calm enough to ease her concerns quickly. He explained that transportation contracts involved constant communication with drivers and warehouse managers. Denise wanted to believe him because nothing else about Marcus seemed suspicious enough to justify deeper doubts. Even when strange cash withdrawals appeared occasionally in their joint account, Marcus blamed client reimbursements or work expenses that needed immediate payment. Denise accepted every explanation because trusting him felt emotionally easier than imagining her marriage could contain hidden pieces she failed to see. As Tyler and Chloe grew older, the emotional distance inside the marriage increased gradually in ways Denise struggled to define clearly at the time. Marcus remained physically present during important moments, but emotionally he often seemed distracted. Some evenings Denise would catch him staring silently through the living room window long after everyone else had gone to bed. Other nights he claimed exhaustion and fell asleep downstairs while the television played quietly in the background. Denise interpreted those moments as signs of aging, stress, and financial pressure rather than deception. After nearly 2 decades together, she believed long marriages naturally became quieter with time. But there were details she could never fully explain even before discovering Rachel and the children. Marcus disappeared briefly during one Thanksgiving, claiming a driver emergency required immediate attention. On Chloe's 19th birthday, he left the restaurant halfway through dinner because of what he described as a scheduling crisis involving one of his freight contracts. Denise felt disappointed during those moments, but never suspicious enough to investigate further because Marcus always returned home apologetic and emotionally convincing. The truth is, Denise loved Marcus in the quiet way many long-married couples love each other after years of routine and responsibility replace excitement. Their marriage was no longer built around romance alone. It revolved around shared history, financial struggle, parenting, funerals, graduations, illnesses, and ordinary moments repeated thousands of times over decades. Denise believed those experiences created a bond too strong for dishonesty to survive inside it. She trusted Marcus because they had suffered together financially during the early years and survived challenges that destroyed other marriages around them. In Denise's mind, nobody works 2 jobs, raises children together, sits beside you in hospital waiting rooms, and prays with you every Sunday morning while secretly building another life elsewhere. That idea felt impossible. Which is exactly why Marcus succeeded for so long. Denise never searched aggressively for lies because she could not emotionally accept the possibility that her husband was capable of living 2 completely different realities simultaneously. But eventually, after 12 years of carefully maintained deception, one small mistake finally disrupted the routine Marcus spent over a decade protecting. And it began with a missed phone call that neither of them could take back. The missed phone call happened on a quiet Friday afternoon in November, only 3 weeks after Denise stood outside Rachel Bennett's house hearing Maya call Marcus dad for the first time. Marcus had rushed out early that morning claiming one of his warehouse drivers called in sick unexpectedly, and in his hurry, he left his second phone charging beside the coffee maker in the kitchen. Denise did not notice it immediately because Marcus normally carried multiple devices connected to work contracts. It was not unusual to see phones, paperwork, and route schedules scattered around the house. But around 2:17 that afternoon, the phone lit up across the counter while Denise folded laundry nearby. The screen displayed a name Denise had never seen before. Lena Redhart. The call stopped after several seconds, then rang again almost immediately. Denise stared at the phone without moving. Something about the heart beside the name unsettled her instantly, though she still tried convincing herself there was a harmless explanation. By the third missed call, her hands were already trembling before she even touched the device. Denise answered softly without speaking at first. For a few seconds, all she heard was movement and distant voices in the background before a young female voice finally came through the speaker sounding cheerful and impatient. "Can you tell Dad he's still coming to Maya's recital tonight?" Denise felt her entire body go still. She later described the moment as feeling physically disconnected from herself, as though someone had suddenly removed all sound from the room except the child's voice. Denise could not respond immediately because her mind struggled to process what she had just heard. The girl sounded young, maybe 16 or 17 years old, and completely comfortable calling Marcus Dad. Not Uncle Marcus. Not Mr. Carter. Dad. Denise eventually whispered the only thing she could think of. Who is this? The line went silent instantly. Then the girl answered cautiously, this is Lena. Denise closed her eyes tightly, gripping the kitchen counter hard enough to leave marks on her palm. Before she could ask another question, the call disconnected abruptly. At first, Denise convinced herself there had to be some kind of misunderstanding because the alternative felt too impossible to accept. She paced through the kitchen replaying the conversation repeatedly, searching for explanations that would make the situation less terrifying. Maybe Lena confused Marcus with another man. Maybe he mentored kids through church programs she forgot about. Maybe Dad was some kind of joke. Denise spent nearly an hour trying to rationalize the call before finally sitting down beside the kitchen table staring silently at the phone still lying in front of her. The device suddenly felt dangerous in a way she could not explain. Denise had shared a home with Marcus for nearly 20 years, yet now one unanswered question made him feel like a stranger sitting invisibly inside her own house. For the first time since their marriage began, Denise experienced something she never thought she would associate with Marcus Carter. Fear. Not fear of violence or anger, but fear of discovering how much of her life had been built around things she did not truly understand. When Marcus finally returned home late that evening, Denise said nothing about the phone call. That decision surprised even her later because part of her desperately wanted immediate answers. But another part of her needed proof before confronting him. Marcus walked through the front door carrying takeout containers and complaining casually about delays at work while Denise watched him carefully from across the kitchen. Every movement suddenly looked different to her now. The relaxed smile. The calm tone in his voice. The way he slipped the forgotten phone quietly into his jacket pocket without realizing Denise had answered it hours earlier. Denise studied him throughout dinner trying to detect signs of guilt, but Marcus behaved exactly the same as he always had. That normal behavior disturbed Denise more than panic would have because it meant Marcus had become comfortable living inside deception. While Tyler called from college discussing football games and Chloe complained about final exams during a video call, Denise sat silently listening to Marcus laugh naturally with the children as though nothing in the world had changed. Meanwhile, one question kept repeating inside her head. Who was Maya? Over the next several days, curiosity slowly transformed into obsession. Denise began waking up during the middle of the night unable to stop thinking about the phone call. While Marcus slept beside her, she quietly searched through drawers, paperwork, and old financial records trying to make sense of details she ignored for years. At first, she found nothing unusual beyond small inconsistencies she previously overlooked. Then came the receipts. Denise discovered several old restaurant charges from neighborhoods Marcus never mentioned visiting for work. Hidden beneath tax documents inside a locked desk drawer, she found motel receipts dated across multiple years under variations of Marcus's middle name. Some weekends matched the exact dates Marcus claimed he was supervising overnight freight deliveries outside Cincinnati. Denise's stomach dropped further each time another piece surfaced because the evidence stretched back much farther than she expected. This was not recent. Whatever Marcus was hiding had existed quietly beside their marriage for years. The deeper Denise searched, the more carefully she realized Marcus organized his double life. Bank statements revealed small monthly withdrawals Denise never questioned because the amounts seemed ordinary individually. But together, over several years, they painted a different picture entirely. Denise also discovered GPS history linked through Marcus's old truck navigation account showing repeated visits to unfamiliar suburban neighborhoods outside Columbus. Some addresses appeared dozens of times over the span of several years. Denise copied everything into a notebook she hid inside her closet while Marcus remained completely unaware she was investigating him. During the day, she continued pretending life was normal. She cooked dinner, answered Chloe's calls, smiled politely during church services. But every quiet moment became consumed by the same terrifying possibility. What if the child on the phone truly belonged to Marcus? What if the man Denise trusted for 2 decades had been building another family while sitting across from her at dinner every night? As the investigation consumed her emotionally, Denise stopped recognizing herself entirely. She spent hours late at night searching online for stories about men secretly maintaining double lives, reading article after article written by women describing betrayals painfully similar to her own situation. Some stories involved hidden affairs lasting months. Others involved secret children discovered decades later through DNA tests and financial records. Denise cried quietly reading many of them because she realized how often people ignore warning signs when love and routine become deeply connected over time. Marcus noticed her exhaustion occasionally and asked if she felt sick, but Denise blamed stress and poor sleep rather than revealing the truth. She needed certainty first. She needed undeniable proof strong enough to destroy every explanation Marcus might attempt to invent later. Then one Thursday evening, while reviewing GPS records connected to Marcus's truck history, Denise discovered a familiar address appearing repeatedly over 12 years. The same address where Maya opened the door. That was the moment Denise made a decision she could never undo. And the following Friday night, for the first time in 20 years of marriage, Denise Carter followed her husband. The following Friday evening, Denise Carter sat inside her car 3 houses away from her own driveway watching Marcus load his familiar overnight bag into the trunk of his truck exactly the same way he had done for years. Nothing about his behavior looked unusual. He kissed Denise gently on the cheek before leaving, reminded her not to stay awake waiting for him, and joked casually about how exhausted he already felt before his weekend shift even started. Denise forced herself to smile while her chest tightened so painfully she struggled to breathe normally. The entire drive after Marcus left felt unreal to her because part of her still hoped she was overreacting. Even after discovering receipts, hidden transactions, and the phone call from Lena, Denise continued searching desperately for an explanation that would save her marriage from collapsing completely. But 20 minutes later, when Marcus exited the highway and drove toward a quiet residential neighborhood outside Columbus instead of the warehouse district he always mentioned, Denise felt the last pieces of denial beginning to disappear silently inside her. Denise followed Marcus carefully from several car lengths away, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her fingers began cramping painfully. Rain tapped softly against the windshield while Marcus drove confidently through streets Denise had never seen before. He looked comfortable there. Familiar. At ease in a way that disturbed Denise deeply because it meant this was not some random visit or temporary arrangement. Marcus knew exactly where he was going. He turned into a peaceful suburban neighborhood lined with small family homes, basketball hoops, children's bicycles, and front porches decorated with early Christmas lights. Denise's heart pounded harder with every passing second as Marcus slowed his truck in front of a modest blue house near the end of the street. Then he parked casually in the driveway like a man returning home after a long workday. Denise stopped her car half a block away and stared through the rain-covered windshield unable to move. For nearly a full minute, she simply watched Marcus sit quietly inside his truck before finally stepping out carrying grocery bags toward the front door. The door opened before Marcus even reached the porch. A woman stepped outside smiling warmly the moment she saw him. Denise immediately recognized Rachel Bennett from the address records connected to Marcus's GPS history, but seeing her in person created a different kind of pain entirely. Rachel did not look like a reckless affair hidden secretly in hotel rooms or bars. She looked comfortable. Familiar. Like someone who genuinely believed Marcus belonged there. Before Denise could fully process the moment, 2 children suddenly rushed through the doorway laughing excitedly. The younger boy wrapped both arms around Marcus's waist while the little girl Denise had already met screamed happily, "Daddy's home." The sound shattered something inside Denise instantly. She later admitted that hearing the children call Marcus daddy felt far more devastating than discovering the affair itself because children do not fake emotional attachment. Their excitement looked natural. Practiced. Routine. These children loved Marcus completely, which meant he had spent years becoming part of their everyday lives while Denise remained completely unaware they even existed. Inside her car, Denise struggled to control her breathing as the family stood laughing together beneath the porch light. Her hands shook violently against the steering wheel while tears blurred her vision so badly she could barely see through the windshield anymore. Every instinct inside her wanted to drive away immediately, but she physically could not force herself to leave because her mind still refused to accept what her eyes were witnessing. Marcus bent down helping the younger boy carry grocery bags while Rachel touched his arm casually during conversation. The familiarity between them felt intimate in the quietest possible way. Not dramatic. Not exaggerated. Just comfortable enough to reveal years of shared routines Denise knew nothing about. For 12 years, Marcus had not simply been cheating on his wife. He had been participating fully inside another household where children waited excitedly for him to come home every weekend. Denise pressed both hands against her mouth trying to stop herself from crying out loud because even now, sitting alone in the darkness watching her husband enter another family's home, part of her still expected to wake up from the nightmare somehow. For nearly 40 minutes, Denise remained parked on the street unable to drive away while Marcus moved naturally through the house visible behind softly lit windows. She watched him help set dinner plates on the table. She watched the children running through the living room while Rachel laughed beside him comfortably. At one point, Marcus lifted Maya into his arms while she wrapped herself around his neck affectionately. Denise began crying harder at that moment because Marcus once held Chloe exactly the same way when she was little. The same smile. The same gentle voice. The same father she believed belonged entirely to their family alone. What destroyed Denise emotionally was realizing Marcus had duplicated entire parts of his life somewhere else without either family discovering the truth. 2 daughters. 2 homes. 2 separate versions of himself existing simultaneously for over a decade. Denise kept searching Marcus's face through the window hoping to see guilt or emotional conflict, but instead he looked relaxed. Peaceful even. Like a man living inside an ordinary Friday evening with people he genuinely loved. As the night continued, Denise's thoughts became increasingly disoriented. Memories from her own marriage began colliding painfully with the reality unfolding inside the blue house across the street. Every missed anniversary dinner. Every cancelled holiday plan. Every overnight shift Marcus claimed exhausted him suddenly carried horrifying new meaning. Denise remembered nights she defended Marcus to friends and relatives who questioned his constant absences. She remembered comforting Tyler and Chloe whenever they felt disappointed their father missed another family event because of work responsibilities. All those sacrifices now felt connected to birthdays, recitals, dinners, and bedtime stories happening inside another home the entire time. Denise realized Marcus had not divided his attention accidentally. He had actively chosen every lie repeatedly for 12 consecutive years. That understanding hurt more deeply than rage because it forced Denise to confront how deliberately Marcus maintained his deception. None of this happened impulsively. He built 2 lives carefully enough that both families trusted him completely. Around 9:30 that evening, Denise finally wiped her face slowly and reached for her car keys intending to leave before Marcus noticed her parked nearby. But before starting the engine, she looked once more toward the house where laughter still echoed faintly through the windows. Marcus sat beside Rachel at the kitchen table helping Maya with homework while the younger boy played on the floor nearby. From the outside, they looked like an ordinary American family ending another quiet Friday night together. Denise stared at the scene silently realizing something that terrified her even more than the affair itself. Marcus looked genuinely happy there. Not trapped. Not conflicted. Happy. And as Denise finally drove away through the rain toward the life she no longer recognized, Marcus Carter remained completely unaware his wife had just discovered the second family he spent 12 years trying to hide. After following Marcus to Rachel Bennett's house, Denise Carter stopped searching for explanations and started searching for evidence. She understood immediately that confronting Marcus without proof would only give him opportunities to manipulate the situation further, and after witnessing him move comfortably between 2 families in a single evening, Denise no longer trusted anything he said. For the next several weeks, she transformed quietly into someone even her closest friends would not recognize. During the day, Denise continued maintaining normal routines while Marcus remained completely unaware she had uncovered his secret life. She cooked dinner, answered calls from Chloe at college, attended church services beside Marcus every Sunday morning, and smiled politely during conversations with neighbors who still viewed the Carters as the perfect middle-class family. But every evening after Marcus fell asleep, Denise sat alone inside the downstairs office going through years of financial records, old tax returns, phone histories, and hidden paperwork she once ignored completely. What began as suspicion quickly turned into something much larger and far more disturbing than Denise imagined possible. The first major discovery came from a mortgage statement Denise found buried inside an old filing cabinet beneath Marcus's work documents. At first glance, the paperwork appeared connected to one of Marcus's transportation contracts, but after reading carefully, Denise realized the property address matched Rachel Bennett's house exactly. Marcus was not simply visiting the home occasionally. He had been helping finance it for nearly 11 years through a second mortgage hidden under a limited liability company Denise never knew existed. Denise stared at the documents for almost 20 minutes trying to steady her breathing because the realization changed everything she thought she understood about the affair. This was no longer about hidden relationships or emotional betrayal alone. Marcus had financially supported another household for over a decade while convincing Denise they struggled constantly to stay ahead of bills and college tuition expenses. Denise remembered arguments about postponed vacations, delayed home repairs, and cancelled anniversary trips caused by financial pressure. All those sacrifices suddenly carried an entirely different meaning now. As Denise dug deeper into bank records and online statements, she uncovered another devastating detail. Marcus maintained a separate joint account with Rachel through a regional credit union located outside Columbus. The account history stretched back almost 12 years and included monthly grocery purchases, utility payments, medical expenses, school tuition deposits, and birthday shopping transactions connected to Maya and Ethan. Denise spent hours reviewing the statements in disbelief because they documented an entire hidden family structure operating quietly beside her own marriage. Marcus paid for school supplies one weekend while helping Tyler move into college dormitories the next. He purchased birthday gifts for Rachel while Denise believed he was working overnight shifts to support their children financially. Denise also found receipts from family vacations Marcus supposedly spent attending logistics conferences in Tennessee and Kentucky. Hotel reservations showed adjoining rooms booked under Marcus and Rachel's names during dates Denise remembered spending alone at home explaining to Chloe why her father missed another important family gathering. The emotional weight of the investigation became almost unbearable for Denise because every new discovery rewrote another piece of her past completely. She found scanned copies of school enrollment forms where Marcus listed himself as Maya and Ethan's father. There were emergency contact records, pediatric appointments, dance recital registrations, and summer camp payments all signed by Marcus using the same careful handwriting Denise recognized instantly from birthday cards and grocery lists sitting inside their own kitchen. Denise cried repeatedly during those nights because the paperwork proved Marcus had not separated himself emotionally from the second family in any way. He participated fully in their lives with the same commitment and consistency he showed toward Tyler and Chloe. In some ways, the second family appeared even more emotionally connected because Marcus spent years protecting them carefully from discovery. Denise eventually realized Marcus memorized 2 complete calendars simultaneously. 2 sets of birthdays. 2 family schedules. 2 anniversaries. 2 emotional realities existing side by side for more than a decade without collapsing into each other. But the most painful discovery did not come from financial records or hidden accounts. It came from learning how many people quietly helped Marcus protect his deception. Denise first became suspicious after reviewing old text messages between Marcus and his younger sister, Valerie. Several conversations referenced weekend arrangements and warnings about Denise asking too many questions regarding Marcus's schedule. At first Denise hoped she misunderstood the messages, but after confronting Valerie privately during lunch one afternoon, the truth surfaced almost immediately. Valerie broke down crying before Denise even finished asking questions. She admitted Marcus confessed the second family years earlier and begged her to keep the secret because he feared losing contact with all his children if the truth came out publicly. Denise sat silently across the restaurant table listening while Valerie described years of covering for Marcus during holidays, birthdays, and emergencies. The betrayal from Marcus already felt unbearable, but realizing family members protected his lies willingly created a completely different kind of emotional damage Denise struggled to process. The deeper Denise investigated, the more isolated she felt emotionally because the deception extended far beyond Marcus alone. One of Marcus's closest friends from church admitted privately that he occasionally covered overnight work shifts to help Marcus maintain both relationships. Several co-workers knowingly approved false overtime paperwork connected to Marcus's transportation routes without asking questions because they assumed he was simply involved in an affair. Nobody realized the situation involved an entirely separate family living less than an hour away. Denise became increasingly disturbed by how normal the lies appeared to everyone involved. People accepted partial truths because confronting reality directly felt uncomfortable. Even Tyler and Chloe unknowingly defended Marcus whenever Denise questioned his absences over the years because their father's hardworking image remained so convincing publicly. Denise realized Marcus succeeded partly because he understood something deeply human about trust. Most people avoid investigating painful possibilities unless forced to confront undeniable evidence directly. Weeks passed before Denise finally reached a point where gathering evidence no longer felt emotionally sustainable. Every document, receipt, and hidden record deepened her understanding of how carefully Marcus divided his life into two separate worlds. She barely slept during that period and often sat awake until sunrise rereading bank statements while Marcus slept peacefully upstairs, completely unaware his entire secret life was slowly collapsing around him. Denise stopped recognizing herself in the mirror. Her appetite disappeared. Conversations became difficult because her mind constantly replayed the same terrifying realization. For 12 years, Marcus woke up every morning making conscious decisions about which family would receive his attention that day. Yet somehow, despite everything Denise uncovered, one question still remained unanswered. Who was Rachel Bennett truly? Denise understood the financial lies now. She understood the deception. But she still did not know whether Rachel knowingly participated in destroying another marriage or whether she had been manipulated by Marcus too. And eventually, after weeks of silent investigation, Denise decided there was only one way left to discover the truth. She was finally going to meet the other woman face to face. Denise Carter spent nearly 2 weeks deciding whether she should contact Lena Bennett directly. Part of her wanted to avoid the confrontation completely because she already felt emotionally exhausted from everything she discovered about Marcus's hidden life. But another part of her needed answers that financial records and secret accounts could never provide. Denise wanted to understand whether Lena knowingly participated in the destruction of her marriage or whether she had been deceived too. That question followed Denise constantly through sleepless nights and quiet mornings alone in the kitchen while Marcus continued pretending everything inside their home remained normal. Finally, on a cold Tuesday afternoon while Marcus believed Denise was visiting her sister outside Dayton, she drove quietly toward a small coffee shop halfway between Columbus and Lena's neighborhood. Denise had contacted Lena anonymously the night before using a private social media account and simply asked to speak in person regarding Marcus Carter. To Denise's surprise, Lena agreed almost immediately. That quick response unsettled Denise because it suggested Lena already sensed something was wrong long before this meeting ever happened. When Denise arrived at the coffee shop, Lena was already seated near the back corner holding a paper cup tightly between both hands. Denise recognized her immediately from the family photographs she secretly copied during her investigation. But seeing Lena sitting alone quietly inside the crowded cafe created a strange emotional reaction Denise did not expect. Lena looked nervous, exhausted, almost frightened. She did not resemble the confident woman Denise imagined while crying herself to sleep for weeks after discovering Marcus's second family. Instead, she looked like someone carrying private confusion she no longer understood herself. For several seconds, neither woman spoke after Denise sat down across from her. The silence between them felt painfully heavy because both understood their lives were connected through the same man, yet neither fully knew what version of Marcus the other woman had experienced all these years. Denise later admitted that sitting across from Lena felt surreal because she realized instantly they were not enemies in the way she originally imagined. The conversation began quietly and awkwardly. Denise introduced herself simply by saying, "I'm Marcus's wife." The words immediately drained color from Lena's face. At first Lena stared at Denise silently as though she genuinely did not understand what she had just heard. Then she shook her head slowly and whispered, "No. Marcus told me he divorced years ago." Denise felt tears rising instantly because hearing those words confirmed exactly how deeply Marcus manipulated both households simultaneously. Denise removed her wedding ring carefully and placed it on the table beside old family photographs she carried inside her purse. The photos showed Denise and Marcus together during anniversaries, church events, Tyler's graduation, and Chloe's childhood birthdays spanning nearly 2 decades. Lena looked at the pictures one by one while her hands began trembling visibly. Several times she opened her mouth as though trying to speak, but no words came out. Then finally, almost in a whisper, Lena asked the question Denise already knew was coming. "You're telling me he never left you?" Denise shook her head slowly. "Marcus came home to me every week for 12 years. Lena broke emotionally at that moment in a way Denise never expected. There was no anger initially. No screaming. No dramatic accusations thrown across the table. Just quiet devastation spreading slowly across someone's face as years of trust collapsed in real time. Lena leaned back in her chair staring blankly toward the window while tears rolled down her cheeks unnoticed. Denise watched her carefully and realized something deeply painful in that moment. Lena genuinely loved Marcus too. Not the version Marcus pretended to be publicly, but the carefully constructed identity he presented privately inside her home every weekend. Lena explained that Marcus told her his first marriage ended after years of emotional distance and arguments. According to Marcus, Denise abandoned the relationship mentally long before the legal separation happened. Lena confessed she often encouraged Marcus to repair communication with his ex-wife for the children's sake because she believed Denise still struggled emotionally after the divorce. Hearing those lies described out loud made Denise physically sick because Marcus had rewritten both women's realities completely differently depending on which home he occupied at the time. As the conversation continued, Denise and Lena slowly began comparing timelines, holidays, anniversaries, and family events. The similarities became horrifying almost immediately. While Denise believed Marcus worked overnight contracts every Friday, Lena believed he spent weekends handling custody arrangements involving Tyler and Chloe. During holidays when Marcus disappeared briefly from Denise's home, he often told Lena work emergencies required sudden travel. Some years he celebrated Christmas morning with one family before inventing excuses to rush toward the other by afternoon. Lena described birthdays, school recitals, and quiet family dinners Marcus attended faithfully for over a decade while Denise sat silently realizing many of those same dates matched moments Marcus claimed work obligations kept him away from home. The realization devastated both women because it exposed how carefully Marcus balanced 2 emotional lives simultaneously. Neither woman truly understood the full version of the man they trusted because Marcus adjusted his identity constantly depending on who stood in front of him. Then Lena revealed something that shook Denise even further. About 6 months earlier, Lena discovered suspicious messages on Marcus's second phone involving another woman entirely. Marcus dismissed the situation quickly and blamed work flirtations from a dispatcher at the transportation company, but Lena admitted she never fully believed him afterward. That confession changed the emotional atmosphere between them immediately because Denise realized Marcus's pattern of deception may have extended even beyond the 2 families already destroyed by his lies. Lena lowered her voice quietly before saying something Denise would remember forever. "I don't think either of us was the only woman in his life." Denise stared at her silently while another painful realization settled heavily between them. For years, both women believed they were building stable futures with the same man while Marcus quietly controlled every version of the truth surrounding them. Neither woman truly knew where his lies began or ended anymore. By the time the meeting ended nearly 2 hours later, both women looked emotionally drained beyond words. Denise no longer viewed Lena as the woman who stole her husband because it had become painfully clear that Lena herself had also been manipulated through years of carefully constructed lies. Marcus gave each household different stories, different explanations, and different emotional realities designed specifically to prevent either side from discovering the truth. Before leaving the coffee shop, Lena finally asked the question neither woman truly wanted answered. "Do the children know anything?" Denise immediately shook her head. Tyler and Chloe still believed their father worked exhausting overtime shifts every weekend, while Maya and Ethan believed Marcus divorced years ago before meeting Lena. Four children existed inside two separate families, completely unaware that the foundations of their lives were built on deception. And as Denise walked slowly back toward her car that evening, one terrifying thought followed her the entire drive home. Eventually, all the children were going to learn the truth too. For nearly 3 weeks after meeting Lena Bennett at the coffee shop, Denise Carter delayed confronting Marcus directly because she understood instinctively that once the truth entered the open, nothing inside either family would ever return to normal again. Every conversation inside the house felt emotionally unbearable during that period because Marcus continued moving through daily life completely unaware his secret world was already collapsing around him. He still sat beside Denise during dinner asking ordinary questions about Chloe's classes and Tyler's job interviews. He still kissed her goodbye before leaving for work every morning. At night, Marcus slept peacefully while Denise lay awake staring at the ceiling replaying every lie she uncovered during the investigation. What disturbed Denise most was how naturally Marcus continued performing the role of husband and father even after she discovered everything. There was no visible guilt. No panic. No sign that carrying two separate families for 12 years exhausted him emotionally at all. Denise eventually realized Marcus believed his double life would continue indefinitely because he convinced himself he controlled every version of the truth surrounding both households completely. The confrontation finally happened on a Sunday evening in early December after Tyler unexpectedly returned home from Columbus for the weekend. Chloe also arrived later that afternoon without warning after finishing final exams early at school. Denise took their presence as a sign she could no longer delay the inevitable conversation any further. For almost 20 years, she protected Marcus's image inside the family while quietly sacrificing parts of herself emotionally whenever his absences or behavior created pain. But now 4 children and 2 women stood connected through years of deception, and Denise understood the lies would only grow more destructive the longer Marcus remained silent. After dinner, Denise asked Tyler and Chloe to stay in the living room because she needed to discuss something important with the family. Marcus looked mildly confused but unconcerned as he carried his coffee toward the couch and sat beside Denise the same way he had thousands of times before. Denise later admitted she barely recognized her own voice when she finally spoke because fear, anger, exhaustion, and heartbreak all collided inside her at once. The first sentence changed the atmosphere inside the room immediately. Denise looked directly at Marcus and asked quietly, "How long were you planning to keep both families hidden from each other?" For several seconds, Marcus simply stared at her without speaking as though his mind could not fully process what he just heard. Tyler looked back and forth between his parents in confusion while Chloe slowly lowered her coffee cup onto the table. Marcus attempted to laugh softly at first, asking Denise what she meant, but the moment Denise placed printed bank statements, mortgage records, and photographs from Rachel Bennett's house onto the table, the expression on Marcus's face changed completely. The silence afterward felt unbearable. Tyler picked up one of the photographs showing Marcus standing beside Rachel and the children during a beach vacation while Chloe covered her mouth in disbelief staring at the same image. Denise watched Marcus carefully during those seconds and realized something deeply unsettling. He was not shocked the truth surfaced eventually. He was shocked Denise discovered how extensive the deception actually was. At first Marcus tried explaining the situation slowly as though calmness alone could control the damage unfolding around him. He admitted he met Rachel years earlier during a difficult period in the marriage and claimed the relationship became more complicated after Maya was born unexpectedly. But as Denise began revealing details only someone who investigated thoroughly could know, Marcus's explanations collapsed quickly. Denise described the hidden mortgage payments, the joint accounts, the school registrations, and the second anniversary dinner reservations connected to Rachel. Tyler's breathing became heavier with every new revelation while Chloe sat completely silent staring at her father like she no longer recognized him physically. Then Denise asked the question she spent weeks preparing to hear answered directly. "Were you ever planning to stop?" Marcus looked down at the floor for several moments before answering quietly, "I thought I could keep both families separate." The room went completely silent after those words because everyone understood immediately what Marcus truly meant. He never planned to choose. He planned to continue lying forever. Tyler reacted first. The anger that had been building silently inside him exploded suddenly as he slammed his fist hard against the hallway wall before shouting, "You lied to all of us." Denise had never seen her son cry before that night, but tears filled Tyler's eyes instantly while years of trust collapsed around him in real time. Marcus stood up trying to calm him down, but Tyler shoved his hand away violently before storming toward the kitchen struggling to control his breathing. Chloe reacted differently. She remained completely still for almost a full minute staring at Marcus silently before whispering words that visibly shattered him emotionally more than anything Denise said during the confrontation. "I defended you every time Mom cried because you missed something important." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but Chloe stood up slowly and backed away from him before saying quietly, "Don't touch me." Denise watched Marcus carefully then, and for the first time since discovering the second family, she finally saw genuine emotional collapse appear across his face. The confidence he carried for years disappeared completely once his children looked at him with disappointment instead of admiration. As the argument intensified, Denise removed her wedding ring slowly and placed it beside the family photographs scattered across the coffee table. The gesture affected Marcus immediately because until that moment he still behaved like someone trying to repair a difficult conversation rather than witnessing the destruction of his entire life. Marcus began crying openly while attempting repeatedly to explain that he loved both families and never intended to hurt anyone. But every explanation only deepened the devastation because it confirmed how long he maintained the deception willingly. Denise finally interrupted him by asking the one question neither Tyler nor Chloe could stop thinking about. "How many birthdays did you leave our family to spend with them?" Marcus lowered his head without answering because the silence itself revealed enough. Every missed holiday. Every canceled dinner. Every overnight work trip suddenly became emotionally connected to another family waiting for him somewhere else. Denise realized then that her marriage did not collapse in one moment. It collapsed gradually across 12 years while she continued trusting a man who quietly divided his life between two homes. Then the situation became even more devastating. Around 9:40 that evening, headlights appeared outside the Carter family home followed by a knock at the front door before anyone inside could emotionally recover from the confrontation already unfolding. Denise froze immediately because she recognized Rachel Bennett standing outside through the front window with Maya and Ethan beside her nervously. Earlier that evening, after Marcus stopped answering calls repeatedly, Lena finally confessed the truth to Rachel completely. Rachel drove directly to Denise's house because she believed the children deserved honesty immediately rather than continued lies. The moment Marcus saw Rachel standing in the doorway holding Maya's hand, his expression shifted from panic into complete emotional collapse because for the first time in 12 years, both families occupied the same space simultaneously. Tyler stared at the younger children in disbelief while Chloe began crying uncontrollably, realizing those kids shared the same father she spent her entire life trusting completely. Maya looked confused and frightened standing beside Rachel because she still did not fully understand why everyone inside the house appeared devastated. The emotional chaos that followed became impossible for anyone involved to forget afterward. Ethan asked innocently why Marcus looked upset while Tyler stormed outside unable to remain in the same room anymore. Chloe refused to look at Marcus entirely and sat beside Denise crying silently while Rachel struggled explaining partial truths to Maya without emotionally destroying her completely in one conversation. Marcus attempted repeatedly to speak, but nobody inside either family wanted explanations anymore because explanations could not undo 12 years of deception. Denise later admitted the most heartbreaking part of the entire night was watching the children realize they were connected to strangers through lies they never asked to become part of. Four children stood inside the same house linked by one man's decisions, while years of hidden birthdays, missed holidays, secret vacations, and divided love finally collided all at once. And as Marcus Carter stood alone in the middle of both families breaking apart around him, he finally understood something he never expected while maintaining two separate lives for over a decade. The truth always arrives eventually. 6 months after both families finally learned the truth, Marcus Carter lived alone inside a small one-bedroom apartment outside Columbus, less than 15 minutes from the warehouse where he still worked overnight logistics contracts. The apartment looked temporary in every possible way, almost as though Marcus expected his old life to return eventually if he waited long enough. Half-unpacked boxes remained stacked beside the walls for months. Family photographs once displayed proudly inside both homes disappeared completely. Tyler stopped answering Marcus's calls after the confrontation night, and Chloe eventually blocked his number entirely following several emotional arguments that always ended the same way. Rachel Bennett moved with Maya and Ethan closer to her parents after realizing nearly every memory connected to Marcus now carried painful questions attached to it. Denise Carter remained inside the family home alone for several months afterward because leaving immediately felt emotionally impossible. Every room inside the house carried traces of a marriage she spent almost 20 years protecting, and despite everything Marcus had done, Denise still struggled accepting how completely her life changed in such a short period of time. The hardest part for Denise was not the affair itself. Over time, she realized betrayal alone was only one layer of the emotional damage Marcus created. What stayed with her constantly was the understanding that so many people quietly protected his deception for years while she continued defending him publicly as a hard-working husband devoted to his family. Marcus's sister Valerie eventually apologized repeatedly, but Denise could never fully forget the lunches, holidays, and conversations they shared while Valerie already knew another family existed less than an hour away. Even certain co-workers and church friends admitted later they suspected Marcus was hiding something serious long before the truth surfaced publicly. Denise spent many sleepless nights replaying old conversations, wondering how many moments carried hidden meaning she failed to recognize at the time. Looking back, she understood that Marcus succeeded partly because everyone around him accepted partial explanations instead of confronting uncomfortable truths directly. Denise often said betrayal changes the way people remember their own lives because once trust disappears, even ordinary memories begin feeling uncertain and emotionally unsafe. Marcus attempted several times to repair relationships with both families during the months following the confrontation, but every conversation seemed to create new emotional wounds instead of healing old ones. Tyler refused to meet him privately after learning Marcus attended Maya's dance recitals during years he missed important baseball games and graduation events, claiming work responsibilities kept him away. Chloe struggled differently because she spent most of her childhood believing Marcus represented stability and honesty during difficult financial periods inside the family. Discovering that he maintained another household simultaneously shattered her ability to trust people easily afterward. Meanwhile, Rachel Bennett faced her own painful reality while trying to help Maya and Ethan understand why their father suddenly disappeared from daily life almost overnight. Maya asked repeatedly whether Marcus still loved them, while Ethan became withdrawn at school according to teachers who noticed sudden behavioral changes after the families collided publicly. Denise later admitted that watching innocent children suffer emotionally because of adult deception became the most heartbreaking part of the entire situation. None of the children chose the lies surrounding their lives, yet all of them inherited the emotional consequences permanently. Eventually Denise began rebuilding small parts of her life quietly without Marcus. She started attending counseling sessions through a local church program and returned part-time to bookkeeping work she abandoned years earlier while raising Tyler and Chloe. Friends noticed Denise became calmer over time, though the sadness never disappeared completely from her voice whenever conversations shifted toward marriage or trust. Some evenings Denise sat alone inside the backyard watching sunsets while thinking about how differently life unfolded compared to the future she once imagined beside Marcus. Yet despite the devastation surrounding the betrayal, Denise also admitted something surprising months later during a private interview shared with close family members. She said discovering the truth eventually freed her from years of emotional confusion she could never fully explain while married to Marcus. For a long time, Denise blamed herself whenever Marcus seemed distant, distracted, or emotionally unavailable. She questioned whether she failed somehow as a wife during periods where Marcus withdrew silently from the family. But after learning the truth, Denise understood Marcus's absences were never truly about her inadequacy. He was dividing himself emotionally between two separate lives from the beginning. One afternoon, nearly a year after the confrontation, Denise found an old wedding photograph hidden inside a storage box while cleaning the hallway closet. The picture showed Marcus smiling beside her outside the small church where they married at 22 years old. Denise stared at the image quietly for several minutes, remembering how deeply she trusted him during those early years when life felt simpler and their future still seemed clear. She admitted later that part of her still mourned the man she believed Marcus was before discovering the second family, because emotionally, that version of him felt real for a very long time. But another painful realization eventually replaced those memories too. Denise never truly knew Marcus Carter completely. Neither did Rachel Bennett. Both women loved carefully managed versions of the same man, while enormous parts of his reality remained hidden behind excuses, work trips, and years of controlled lies. That understanding stayed with Denise longer than the anger itself, because it forced her to question how well any person can truly know someone after decades of shared life together. Marcus reportedly continued trying to reconnect with all 4 children months after both families separated from him emotionally, but rebuilding trust proved far more difficult than maintaining deception ever was. Tyler eventually agreed to one brief meeting with his father nearly 11 months later, but according to relatives close to the family, the conversation ended painfully after Tyler admitted he no longer knew which memories involving Marcus were genuine anymore. Chloe never fully reconciled with him at all. Rachel focused entirely on protecting Maya and Ethan from additional emotional damage, while Denise slowly learned how to exist peacefully without constantly searching for answers that could never fully repair what was destroyed. In many ways, the story stopped being about infidelity long before the marriage officially ended. It became a story about identity, trust, manipulation, and the devastating emotional cost of maintaining lies across multiple lives for more than a decade. 12 years of secrets destroyed 2 families, and neither of them truly knew the man they loved. What would you have done after discovering a second family? Could you ever forgive something like this after learning how deeply the deception reached into every part of your life? And if you think this story was unbelievable, wait until you hear the next one. Please subscribe to my channel for more emotional true stories that reveal how quickly ordinary lives can change forever.